Welcome, everyone. We're so glad you joined us tonight. We have a lot of people signed up for this webinar tonight, so we're just going to let them join us in the next minute, and then we'll get going. So I'm so glad you joined us. I have to say that I saw Julie give this talk a few years ago to a standing room only crowd at the library, and I learned so much. It was so interesting, so you're in for a real treat tonight. We still have some more people joining in, so we're just going to wait just 30 more seconds and let people get into the room here, and then we'll be starting. So, hi, good to see you all. We'll be starting momentarily, just letting a few more people come in, and I think we're ready to go. So, welcome. Good evening. We're so glad that you joined us. Gallatin Valley Earth Day is thrilled to be presenting Creating a Zero Waste Home with Julie Fathy. My name is Ann Reddy, and I'm the chair of the Gallatin Valley Earth Day Committee. And I'm looking forward to learning the interesting tips and how to create a less waste in my home from Julie tonight. But before we do, I just wanted to go through with you how you can ask questions of Julie. While she's speaking and you have a question, you can go to the right-hand side of your screen, and there's a board there. And in the gray area, there's a line that says questions. So click on that, and then you can enter your question. And then at the end of her talk, we'll be going through those questions, and Julie can answer them. There's also a feature, if you look around there, that you can, it's called raise your hand. If you want to raise your hand, then we can unmute you and you can ask Julie the question yourself. So those are the two options. In addition, I wanted to just go ahead here and remind you that we have a number of great Earth Day events every day this week, which actually we have events continuing all the way through May. I'm going to try something new for me here. I'm going to try and share my screen so you can see some of these great events. Well, I may need Lorene to help me, but we'll try this. And here we go. So Lorene, is it working? I'm hoping so. So anyway, here just a quick overview of some of the great events that you could also join this week. Every single day this week, we have something going on. Tomorrow, there's a book club. The next day, there's a great talk at the library at noon about people and wildlife. That should be very interesting. And then on Earth Day itself, please join us for a special Earth Day celebration. We have a number of very talented local musicians, and also a local film student at MSU who helped us produce a really wonderful short film featuring some of our kids talking about Earth Day. And also we'll be showing a very wonderful short film about Claire Velasquez, a local high school student who, as a middle schooler, helped get solar panels on our schools. If you're into art and want to learn a little art, we have on Friday, you can join an art class. There's still some openings there. It's an online virtual art class with a local artist from Butte, Lori Egan, and you can also enjoy some wine and cheese and have a little drawing lesson. Then on Saturday, the 24th, you have so many great events to choose from. We're calling it Earth Day in the Parks, plural, because at Story Mill Park, Sacagawea, Audubon, we'll be giving bird walks at 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. Also from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m., they have an open house for their garden in the Story Mill Park that's called Plants for Birds. You can learn a lot about how to make your garden more bird friendly from them. Then you might want to head over also to the Gallatin County Regional Park. At 9 a.m., we're having our first annual Earth Day run. It's a 5K walk run, and it benefits the Solar Schools Club at the high school. These kids are trying to put solar panels up on the high schools, and they'd love to have your support. Also at You can stick around at Gallatin County Regional Park because from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. we have a very fun trail of exhibits. You can go find out more about interesting subjects revolving around Earth Day. And we have a kid's passport. We have a lot of fun kid activities. They can get their passport stamped, and they can win some prizes. So it should be a real fun family event. And lastly, I don't want to forget mentioning that we have another great film due to the support of a lot of businesses in town. We are showing this free. It's a free virtual screening. You can watch it anytime you want, starting April 24th all the way through May 1st. And so please visit our website at www.gallatinvalleyearthday.org, and you can get all the details of any sort of event that you're interested in attending. We have a calendar of events, and we also have a very nice program that lists all the details. So with Reen's help, I'm going to get back off of the screen and back to my program here. And there we go. Okay, so lastly, I can't wait to hear from Julie, but I can't go on without really giving a big shout out to our sponsors who supported over 20 Earth Day events this year. Our sponsors include Obos Footwear, Audi Bozeman, the Greater Gallatin United Way, and of course Sacagawea Audubon Society. And I want to give a special thanks to Sacagawea Audubon Society for providing this webinar platform for tonight's event. And now for tonight's program. I am so pleased to introduce Julie Fathy. Julie, for as long as she can remember, she's been drawn to simple and intentional living with deep reverence given to the natural world. As part of her path, she started critically thinking about her family's waste over a decade ago. Now, Julie is a mother to 3, and she lives with her husband and her youngest child in the mountains near Bozeman, Montana. Professionally, she founded and she co-owns a nutrition company. And when she's not working, you can find her in the wilderness or immersed in any number of homemaking projects. So now, Julie, I'd like to introduce Julie and let her take it away.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for coming tonight or logging in, I guess. It's wonderful to have such a great turnout. And thank you, Anne, so much for that introduction. I started my zero waste path a little over a decade ago, and it started with a magazine article that I read in Sunset, and it was about a family. I think they live in California, and they changed their lives and reduced their waste, their annual waste, to fit into a jar. My family is nowhere near that, and it's taken me, like I said, over a decade to get where we are, but we are best described as a low waste family. We're constantly evolving. I have a lot of successes and I've had a lot of failures. And quite frankly, this last year has been incredibly difficult with the pandemic because, as everyone knows, some of the zero waste practices like bulk shopping just weren't available and everything was wrapped in plastic. But I feel like we're kind of getting out of that, and I'm feeling renewed and have lots of wonderful ideas to share with you. And before I have a slideshow to present tonight, but before I get into that, I just want to kind of go over my approach to zero waste. And there's so many ways to live this lifestyle. And the important thing is to find your own path and to keep in mind your lifestyle, your talents and interests, and go with that. And so what I show tonight, it's just to inspire you to jump off and go at your own, take your own path. But the approach I take, I'd say the number one thing is I like to reduce the amount of goods I consume. We live in a consumer society, as you know, and it's real important to me that I just mindfully consume. And I've included a handout And I think you can see that, you can download that, and it's called Creating a Zero Waste Home. And I believe Anne will maybe send that out in a follow-up email. But I go into a lot of detail in that handout, and it'll give you some good ideas, more than I can cover tonight. So I encourage you to look at that, and please pass on to your friends. But number one is I reduce the consumption of goods. And in that handout, there's a lot of ideas on how I do that. Secondly, I have adopted make, thrift, mend practices. And I make a lot of stuff from scratch. You'll see that I cook from scratch. I make homemade cleaners for my home and self-care items. I make clothing and toys for my son. So there's a lot of things I make. I also mend, and that just kind of means like I really take care of my belongings, and I repair them and mend them so that their lifespan is much longer. And last, I thrift, and that means not only do I buy things secondhand when I can, but it also means using what you have and just being resourceful. Third, I guess that was my second strategy. Third, I simplify, and I just kind of take things down to the essence. And I have a quote that I love that I want to share with you. It's pare down to the essence, but don't remove the poetry. Pare down to the essence, but don't remove the poetry. And I have the author quoted in my handout. And hopefully my slideshow will show that for you. I think it's really important to make it, in order to make a zero waste lifestyle doable, is to create systems. And I won't get into a lot of that right now, but I'll point out some systems that I have created in my life that help make zero waste way more doable. And last, I think it's great to connect with like-minded people and to have community to help support you in this lifestyle and inspire you. And that's what we're here for tonight. So thanks again for coming, and let's dive in. Creating your zero waste home. Again, I think that it's really important to know that there's no such thing as zero waste. In fact, I'm not really fond of that term, but it's the one that was coined, and it's the one that is most often used. But that's not possible. So the best thing is to go for reducing your waste. And in my home, and probably in your home too, the most waste is created in the kitchen. So I'm going to start there. And hold on. Oh. Technical issues. It's not forwarding. Oh, here we go. There we go. Let me turn my camera off. Sorry about that. So the best thing I would say about creating a zero waste kitchen is starting with how you shop. And the obvious is taking your reusable cloth grocery bags. And this is a system that I think is often overlooked, that I hear people say, oh, I forgot my bags. Well, as soon as I unload the groceries, I put the bags back into the car. So that's a really important system. Again, cloth produce bags for your produce. And this was pre-COVID, but I used to get bread just right from the shelf off the grocery store and put it into my own bags. And then when I'd get home, I'd reuse a plastic bag to keep it fresh. One of the biggest things that I use to reduce my waste is I fill jars at the bulk section of the grocery store. And here's another system that I use. I use mason jars, and I make labels that have a PLU and a tear number, or a PLU number and then the tear weight. And the tear weight, all that is the weight of the jar, and it's in pounds. And that way, when you check out, the grocery clerk subtracts the tear weight, and you're only paying for the food. So I have these little labels, and I match the food and the tear weight to the jar, and I just reuse them. And so my basket with my empty jars with my lids, that's my grocery list. And it's a system that works. I can send my husband to the grocery store, and he knows what to get and how to do it. It's really simple. This is just a picture of my spice jars using that same system, where I take my jars to the grocery store and fill them. So I think a big part of zero waste is where to shop and how to shop. And I shop the perimeter of the grocery store. And so I'm avoiding packaged food. And this was a picture taken probably 5 years ago at the grocery store. And I actually, you can see how I would buy produce without packaging. But I've actually since then kind of changed how my family eats, and we're way more local based. And this is actually my farmers market haul from Saturday's farmers market. And you can see I have bought produce without any plastic packaging. There was a really nice gluten-free bread that was thoughtfully packaged in compostable paper. So there was no waste. And so I've shifted from buying a lot of things from the grocery store to also focusing on shopping directly from farmers. And so most of my vegetables come from the farm. I buy my milk directly from a local farmer, and I send my jars to them, and they refill them, and we have a pickup system. Same with the eggs. I reuse the egg cartons, and I get eggs fresh from the farm. And I grow. I'm growing more food. I'm not a very experienced or even that successful of a gardener, but that has been something that I've, again, evolving towards to help reduce my waste. And one thing that I would recommend if you're not a gardener and you're just starting on this path is to pick a crop that you want to grow for your family. And last year my crop was I mean, I grew a lot of things, but the crop that I wanted to grow and not have to buy was garlic, because I can grow that successfully here. And our garlic made it through April. We planted more in the fall because it's a fall plant that you harvest, or you plant in the fall and then you harvest it in the fall. So last year I planted even more garlic, and hopefully this year's harvest will take us through a full year, but I was pretty pleased with that. Sometimes you can't avoid packaging, and it's just a matter of choosing better packaging. And here is, buying block cheese that has a little bit of wrap around it, plastic wrap, rather than a bag of pre-grated cheese that has way more plastic. Choosing glass over a plastic bottle, or a cardboard over plastic, packaging. Sometimes I can't buy things in bulk in the bulk section and fill my own jars, so I'll buy bulk quantities, and that's another way where it's better packaging. So a big part of my way to eat or to avoid waste is cooking from scratch. And it's not only just meals cooked from scratch to avoid packaged food, but it's also making things like cereals or granolas, snacks, condiments. And I also have, we drink zero waste coffee. And the way I do that is I fill my jars at the bulk section with coffee beans, and then we use a stovetop espresso. But you could also use a French press, or you could use a reusable coffee filter in a coffee machine or a pour over. So there's different options there. Tea you can buy in loose leaf in bulk and avoid tea bags. And this is another area where I've kind of evolved. I no longer buy tea in the bulk section, but I actually dry plants that I either have grown or foraged. And this year I supplied all the tea that we drank, and I still have plenty to get us through the season until I start growing and harvesting. And these are all plants that I foraged in the woods. It's clover and roses and yarrow. And I not only use some of this for teas, but I also use it in my self-care products, in my cleaning products, and natural remedies and so forth. So again, you know, I didn't start here. This is where I've kind of evolved and am moving, and it's another way of creating less waste, not only in terms of trash, but also in terms of mileage, in terms of energy that is used to bring food into my home. So food waste is a huge issue, and I think one of the biggest things you can do is store food properly and learn how to store food, and also to store food without needing to use like plastic wrap and plastic bags. And this kind of just gives some ideas for you know, using jars or casserole dishes or plates, beeswax wrap, but use what you have in your home. Don't throw out all your plastic, use it up, and when you're ready to replace it, look and see what you have in your home before you go and buy more stuff. And then if you do need to buy something, look secondhand and look for plastic-free options. Again, trying to avoid food waste. These are some Parmesan rinds that I keep in my freezer, and rather than throwing them out, I put them in soups to flavor soups. There's so many ideas on avoiding food waste. My family will tell you that the best thing I am at cooking is cleaning out the fridge. And I don't know how you'd describe that or what you'd call it, but I am really good at taking whatever's languishing in the fridge and turning it into something. And one of my go-to dishes is a frittata. My husband does the same, but he makes fried rice. He loves to make fried rice with leftover vegetables and meats and cheeses or whatever. So have something in your repertoire to use up food before it perishes. And if I could convince you to do one thing to reduce food waste, it would be to compost. And, you know, if you don't want to compost at home, there's compost services. And I even, when I lived in Denver and I had a small yard and I did have a compost bin, but sometimes it would fill up, I would literally dig a hole in my garden and dump food waste. And again, it would just be vegetable waste. And so you're not attracting pests, but that soil, it would rot and turn into wonderful soil. So there's so many ways to compost your food waste without sending it to the landfill. We are a paperless kitchen, so I don't buy paper towels or paper napkins. And sometimes that requires a little bit of creativity. I save my butter wrappers in the fridge or freezer and use those to grease pans. We use cloth napkins in our home. Sometimes it's a matter of kind of thinking about what you have. And I include this picture because I needed something to organize my silverware. And rather than buying something new or even going secondhand, I looked around my house and I thought, well, maybe some egg carton tops would work. And, you know, it does the job. If you're out and about, I encourage you to pack a zero waste kit to go. And that's either like packing your lunch or snacks or whatever to go on the road, or taking empty containers and filling them at your, you know, local coffee shop or whatever. And so this is just an example of that. Here's a picnic that I went on, and I packed a salad in a jar and took my own plate and napkin and so forth. So think about that. Think about zero waste as you travel outside of your home. Oops. Let's see if I can go back. So to the bathroom, we'll move, which is another area that people tend to make a lot of waste. And we really hardly even need a trash can in our bathroom because we create so little waste. And I would say the biggest way that I have achieved that is just by paring down the products that I use. And I kind of make a lot of things. I choose things in the best packaging that I have. And again, I pare down my the items that I actually use. So I make a homemade tooth powder, and a lot of my recipes are actually in the handout, so you'll have those. We use a homemade tooth powder. The floss we use, it's an example of not perfect, but better. It comes in cardboard packaging, which I like, but the floss is not biodegradable. There are flosses that are made from silk and I don't know, maybe some other materials that are biodegradable. I've found that they're very expensive and they tend to break easily. So this is a middle ground. Sometimes it's about choosing better, not best. And then we use bamboo toothbrushes, which can be repurposed at the end of their life or composted. We use bar soap in our home, and the bar soap that I buy, I get from a local soap maker, and I found her at a farmer's market, and she makes palm oil free soap, which is, if you don't know why you should avoid palm oil, you can do your research, but I highly recommend that you look for palm oil free, package free soap. And it's, you know, the beautiful thing is that I met Amy at the farmer's market and now we're friends, and it's wonderful as she'll sell me soap in bulk, so I'll buy a number of bars, and she doesn't put any packaging on them, and it's just a really nice relationship. And adding on to that, I think it's a big part of my zero waste lifestyle. It's not just about reducing waste, but it's about creating resilience in your life and creating community. And wherever I have a chance to keep my money in the local economy, I will. So shampoo and conditioner, there are, a few different options to avoid waste. There's solid shampoo bars and conditioner bars. And there's also what's called no poo. And you can look that up. It's just kind of like using baking soda and vinegar or some other products to wash your hair. I've tried those. They didn't really work for me. So this was the best solution, is to take my bottles and jars to the store to get them refilled. In Bozeman, we have the co-op Ross Hours, and there's a business at the farmers market called the Refillery that I highly recommend that you check out, where she has a number of different products that you can take your bottles and refill. I use a safety razor in place of a disposable plastic razor, and this takes a little bit more of a commitment because it's not the easiest or fastest to use, but I've gotten used to it. And I also use bar soap rather than shaving cream. This is a salt crystal deodorant that I used for a number of years, and I bought this, oh gosh, a decade ago at a market in France, and the purveyor just wrapped it up in newspaper and gave it to me. And I would still be using it today, except that it got dropped a number of times and shattered. And so if you can, I don't know if you can find crystal deodorant package free, but if you can, it works wonderful. It's a natural deodorant. Now I make my deodorant, and it's just 2 ingredients. I put that recipe in the handout as well, and it's very effective. So there's so many options. The only product I use on my body for moisturizer is a homemade salve that I make, and I use olive oil that I get from the bulk, and then beeswax from a local beekeeper that's package free. and it's just so simple to use. And I used to make a cream that had a lot of different ingredients. It was a lot of different steps. It was a mess to clean up. And this is an example where I just kind of started paring down and removing some of the ingredients. And I landed on this, and I thought, you know, it works just as well. It's easy, it's effective, and it is actually even less waste than what I was doing. And I infused the oil with plants or plant material that I forage or grow. In this picture, I have rose hips and calendula, rose hips that I foraged and calendula that I grew in my garden. I've also infused the oil in pine and fir needles and juniper berries, and that works beautifully and smells wonderful. And that's free. All this stuff is, you know, free or virtually free, and works wonderful. And you just combine the oil and the beeswax in a container and set it over simmering water. And when the wax melts, you kind of give it a stir and pour it into a jar, and you're done. It's so simple. We use plastic-free packaging, or we buy our toilet paper plastic without any plastic packaging. And this is the company that we use. There are other companies out there, and it comes to my doorstep in bulk, and it's couldn't be easier and less waste. Instead of buying boxes of Kleenex, we use hankies, and we also just use toilet paper, to be quite honest, to blow our nose. But those are some options rather than buying boxes of Kleenex. I make a lot of, well, not a lot, but I make some natural remedies, and this is something that I didn't used to do, but I'm adding into my practice. And this is a bee balm oxymel that I'm starting, and it's, you know, the finished product is for coughs and for sore throats. And the bee balm I just foraged, and again, it's just, you know, out my door and practically free and no packaging. So it's a wonderful option to go with natural remedies versus over the counter. Moving on to the zero waste wardrobe. So there is a tremendous amount of waste in the fashion industry, and I try to avoid that with a couple of ways. As you might guess, I don't have very many clothes. As you can tell, I tend towards minimalism, and that doesn't mean that you have to be a minimalist to live a zero waste life. That's just how I've kind of chosen my path. So I don't have a lot of clothes. I try to only buy clothes that are natural fibers, linen, wool, cotton, silk. And the reason for that is I wear my clothes until they wear out, and then I literally will compost them. So if it's something big like clothes or sheets or bedding or something like that, I will use them for sheet mulching in my garden. And if it's just small little bits of cloth, I might throw it directly in the compost. And just a note that if you do that, I tend to cut out the seams, because most of the thread is synthetic and is not biodegradable. And so we don't want all that microplastic in our soil. So I cut that out, and then just, again, compost the fabric at the end of its life. So I try to buy my clothes secondhand, or I make some of my clothes. And then when I do buy new clothes, I try my best to support companies that have sustainable and ethical practices. I mend clothes so that they last longer, and we literally wear them until they wear out. And this is a stack of my husband's pants that you can tell he's pretty hard on them, but I just keep them going until he says, you know what, please don't fix these anymore. I encourage you to support companies that will repair clothes. So this was a hand-me-down parka that my son received, and the zipper was broken. So I sent it back to LL Bean, and for a very small price, they replaced the zipper. And so it lasted him, he wore it for a year, and now it's been passed on. So there's no telling how many kids this will pass through before it's no longer usable. But it was really nice that I could get it repaired to keep it going. I think a big part of caring for your clothes is washing them in cold water and hanging them to dry. And that just increases their lifespan. And also, it's again, I think zero waste is not just about the trash, but also about your use of resources, including your energy use. And so I believe the clothes dryer is one of the most energy intensive appliances in a home. So any chance I can get, I hang clothes out, or I hang them on hanging or on clothes racks in the house. And I encourage you to do that. This is my forever purse. It was a gift from my mom probably a decade ago, and it's came from a company that guarantees their products for life. And I did have to have the strap repaired, and I sent just the strap back to the company, and they kept the same hardware and repaired the strap and sent it back. And it's kind of a timeless piece. It's nothing beautiful or whatever, but it works for me. And I literally will probably still be using this purse when I'm an old lady. And I do the same with shoes. I try to buy really high quality shoes, and I polish them on a regular basis, and I send them to the what's the shoe person called? Anyway, to the store to get the soles repaired and everything. And so buy quality that will last for life, but also when you're buying really high quality things, make sure it's something that you want to keep for life. So talking about zero waste children, I think the biggest thing I can recommend is just to get your children outside in nature every single day. And I think it's so important to establish that reverence for a deep nature connection with your children and to have that culture in your family. This is a picture from last year's Earth Day of my son and I picking up trash on our county road. I think that, again, any opportunity that you have to educate your children about caring for the earth, you jump on that and role model for them. If you are expecting a child or planning a family, I would recommend going with cloth diapers and wipes to avoid all that waste from diapers. And to give your children toys that are made from natural materials, from wood or cloth, or just natural materials. And in this picture, these are all toys except for the soft toys, which I made, and those were made from just scraps of fabric that I had around the house, but everything else came from the thrift store. So don't overlook the thrift store for wooden toys, because wooden toys can be expensive, but they also can be found for pennies at a thrift store. And my favorite way to organize and corral toys is using thrift store baskets. And every basket in this picture is a thrift store basket. So look for those. I think it's important to set up a natural art cupboard for your child to use things from nature, and to, like, this is homemade Play-Doh that I made, and gathered some stuff from nature and gave them a few cookie cutters from the kitchen. So use what you have, pull from nature. Look at thrift stores. Again, this is just a kind of a basket to give to my son to create with, and they were peg wooden pegs and wooden beads, and the twine all came from the thrift store. The rest of it, the fabric and the yarn, was just stuff I had around the house. So use what you have, and don't think that you need to run to Michael's or to the store to buy stuff. You probably have everything that your child needs, and you'll be giving them the gift of creativity by letting them create with what's available. And when you do buy art materials, think about alternatives to plastic. So rather than markers, maybe give them crayons and wooden colored pencils. And here's some paste that's in a tin can. I actually have moved to making my own glue, which is so simple. It's literally flour and water, and it's an easy consistency for my son. It hardly takes any flour, like a tablespoon, to make a big batch. And it's easy, and I have the material. It's free, and there's no plastic. For Halloween, I made this costume for my son. It's a little box, as you can see. And again, it was just fabric that I had on hand. My older kids, when they were little and were dressing up for Halloween, I'd give them $10 and send them to the thrift store and let them create a costume. And again, I think that, you deny your child the ability to create when you take them to a store and let them buy a pre-made costume. One other thing I'd recommend is just try to avoid freebies and plastic stuff. And this is a little bear toy that I made for my son to give to him after a dentist appointment. And I talked to the dental hygienist and the dentist ahead of time and said that we're a family that's trying to reduce our waste. And I'd prefer that my son not get a plastic toothbrush and not dig in the toy bin for plastic, junk that they bring home and that lasts for 2 seconds. And so instead I made this, and I don't always have time to do that. And I also included a bamboo toothbrush, and the hygienist gave it to him at the end of the appointment. But I don't always have time to do this. I sometimes just buy toys from the thrift store and have kind of a hidden secret stash that I'll pull out for those occasions. The zero waste office. And I think the biggest amount of trash that I used to have was from junk mail. And so eliminating junk mail, I've provided some steps that work really well in the handout for how to get rid of junk mail. And most days we don't get mail, or I shouldn't say most days, but we don't get much junk mail. We get very little junk mail anymore. So that is the biggest thing that I'd recommend. And going back to that, I think that it's, a lot of things can be recycled, but recycling is a last choice. That should be a last choice. Your first choice is to eliminate the need to recycle. So that's why I think it's so important to stop junk mail. Online banking, paperless billing is a great way to eliminate waste. Then just use what you have. Shop your house for office supplies, school supplies, whatever. This is our, drawer of junk pens and pencils and notebooks that were left over from my older kids' school days that I'm still using. And use that stuff up. And then when you've used it up and you need more, don't overlook the thrift store, because they are full of office supplies. And the local Saks thrift store has a bin of free pens and pencils that you can help yourself to. This is my personal office supplies that I keep in my home office. And I pare things down to just the essentials. And this is kind of an example of a system. And I keep all my supplies, and other than like paper and envelopes, in this case. And this is a thrifted case. It actually has a combination lock that I use so that my 7-year-old doesn't come in and walk away with my one pen or my, my stapler or whatever. And so that's kind of a system. It's me having the ability to pare down to just what I need, and then putting it in a place where I know it is and make sure it's safe from little hands. Cleaning my zero waste home. I think, again, the important thing here that I've applied is making my own cleaners. And I used to make pretty complex cleaners with lots of different ingredients. And I've found out that I can clean my home very effectively with just 3 ingredients, and that's vinegar, just white distilled vinegar that you can buy in the gallon jugs, and baking soda that you buy in bulk, and Castile soap, and that you can buy in big quantities. And I have a probably about a 24-ounce bottle of Castile soap that I bought 7 years ago, and it's probably only halfway done. So, you know, it lasts for a very long time. This is an example. This is actually an old picture. You can see that's one of my old cleaning recipes that I don't use anymore because, again, I've minimized what I actually put in my cleaners because it's just as effective. But one of the systems is I found that I would just mix a spray bottle full of cleaner, and I would use that up, and then I'd be frustrated because, oh my gosh, I was in the middle of something, or it was a particularly busy day and I really didn't have time to mix something. So I just made more of the cleaner and put it in a gallon jug, and I still do that even though I've simplified my recipes, and I keep that in my cleaning closet and just fill my sprayer when it's done. So that's a system that helps make zero waste cleaning doable for me. If you want to get fancy, you can infuse your vinegar with orange peels or rosemary or lavender, and that adds both fragrance and disinfectant qualities, but you don't have to. Sometimes, you know, you may not make your own products and you might need to buy. This is laundry detergent, as you can see, and I think this was probably homemade laundry detergent, but I now buy laundry detergent in bulk, and I actually buy it in a big 10-gallon pail that lasts me for probably well over a year. And then I reuse those pails around the house for various reasons. But if you're not wanting to buy that kind of quantity, I would recommend looking for like powdered detergent in cardboard boxes, or seeing if you can fill your jar at the bulk section. We use dryer sheets or wool dryer balls in place of dryer sheets. I clean with natural materials like brushes with wood handles and natural bristle brushes, and cloth, you know, cotton cloth, and use old sheets and rags or t-shirts as rags. So use what you have, but make those natural as possible so that they too can rot at the end of their life. Taking care of your belongings. Here's some homemade wood butter. I've included that recipe, and that's just what I use on my wood utensils and tools to help their life last longer. And I always like to end my presentation on zero waste celebrations. I think it's so important that you carry these values into every part of your life, and that includes celebrations. And this picture was from a birthday party I had for my daughter, and I made the little bunting flags with just some fabric I had on hand. I went to the thrift store and I bought some tablecloths and napkins and used glass bottles and wildflowers for the table. And to be honest, when I was done with this party, I returned the tablecloths and napkins and donated them back to the thrift store because I knew I probably wouldn't use those on a regular basis. And I like to keep things, you know, in use, whether it's by me or someone else. And those cost me $10, and I would have spent far more than $10 had I gone to a party store and bought paper napkins and paper utensils and paper or plastic utensils. And we entertain a tremendous amount outside. And so this is kind of an example of where I did buy new, but I bought thoughtfully. And I don't think you should run out and buy outdoor dishes if that's not something that's part of your life. But I bought some stainless steel pie plates that I got from a restaurant supply store, and some stainless steel cups and some silverware, and that's our picnic or our outdoor entertaining dishes. And I could have gone to a thrift store and bought it secondhand, but I wanted something that would store easily and compactly. And so I did choose something new, and that's kind of as a last resort, but I wanted to give you that example. Zero waste food at a celebration. You can fill your bottles and growlers at with hard cider or beer at a local brewery. There's tons of options for zero waste snacks. You can make popcorn. You can get snacks at the bulk section of the grocery store, or fill your containers at the salad bar or olive bar. So there's a lot of different choices for zero waste snacks. Decorate with natural materials. Don't go to the party store or even the grocery store. Use what you have, or look to nature to decorate with. Here's some confetti that's made from some leaves. So get creative. This is a Easter centerpiece that the moss and the wood was just found in the woods, and then a wooden Easter, or a wooden rabbit that was a toy, or is a toy of my son's, that made it into the centerpiece, and a little candle that I made. This was my son's Easter basket last year, I believe. And one of the things I would say that I do is I give less at holidays, but I really try to give thoughtfully. And so rather than, again, going to the store and filling a basket with candy and store-bought items, I made a little bunny, I grew a little plant, I filled a little bag with jelly beans from the bulk section. It can be really sweet and thoughtful and still be zero waste. These are just some Christmas stockings that I made from, believe it or not, these were wool skirts that my mother wore in high school, and she kept those for years, and they had been eaten by moths, so there were holes in the fabric, so they couldn't be used as skirts anymore. So I repurposed the fabric and made stockings, and it's just so sweet to think of my mom every year when I bring those out at Christmas time. I haven't bought gift wrap for years, and instead I just have a basket where I save recycled paper or tissue paper that comes into the house. I use yarn and twine and different things for ribbon, and I try not to use tape, but if I do, I actually have some paper tape that I use. So there's a lot of ways to go zero waste with your wrapping. You can use fabric. There's so many different options. And I just want to encourage you to include seasonal celebrations in your zero waste holidays. And I haven't always done this. This is a picture from winter solstice. And we probably started about 4 years ago celebrating the solstices and the equinoxes. And it's just another way to bring a connection to nature into your family and make it that part of your culture. So I encourage you to do that. Sometimes you feel like in this work that, why bother? Not enough people are doing this. And I think what keeps me motivated is, gosh, just this beautiful planet that we live on, but it's also my children. And it's so important to me to leave them with, that they inherit a planet that is, worth living on. And so I just keep that in the back of my mind, and it keeps me motivated and keeps me going. So that is it. And I would love to take questions. I'm going to put my camera back on. And yes, I'll turn my screen on.
Thank you, Julie. That was so inspiring. I have so many great ideas now, and you're just so creative, and your pictures are just beautiful, gorgeous. So thanks. I'm going to go out here now and see what we have. A ton of questions, so I'm going to start reading a few. Susan Hinkins asks, any progress on getting commercial providers to switch to compostable packaging? Any comments on that?
I definitely am seeing more of that. Again, I guess my approach has just been to avoid packaged food, but I do see more and more of that. And, one thing that I have to kind of draw attention to is some of the compostable packaging, especially the compostable packaging that kind of looks like plastic. People sometimes we'll put that in the recycle bin and it's not recyclable, and then it just kind of messes with the recycling process. And also that packaging can't be recycled or composted in a home composting system. So it does need to be sent to a professional composting. I don't know what you call that, but you know what I mean.
Thank you, Julie. We have a number of people who've also used the raise your hand feature. Lorene, you may need to help me with this, but I see that Ann Schaefer has raised her hand. Lorene, can you unmute her, or can she unmute herself?
Ann's unmuted. She can talk at any time.
Okay. Ann, are you there?
Oh, sorry, no questions. I think that was a mistake.
Well, thank you. I see. How about there's Mrs. Wagamom. She had her hand raised, and now we've unmuted her. Are you there? Do you have a question? Maybe she too was experimenting with the raise the hand. Okay, but that's just, if anyone else has a question, you're just dying to ask Julie, go ahead and click on the raise your hand signal if you'd like to. Oh, here we go. Martha Klauman.
Yep, Martha can unmute herself. There she goes.
Go ahead, Martha. Martha, are you there? Well, okay, we're having success with getting the hand up, but not with the questions. So let's go back to some more of our questions. We have a number of thank yous, Julie. A lot of people are just saying thank you, such great information. So we're getting a lot of that out there. Oh, wait, Martha has asked a question. Here she goes. Martha has a question that she typed in. Do you have any recommendations for menstrual products, Julie? And we need to unmute Julie, maybe.
Julie can unmute herself.
Okay.
Julie?
Oh, she doesn't have any, maybe. I see her shaking her head. Or she can't unmute herself? Well, we may come back to this. We'll see. Julie, we have another question. Mrs. Wagamom.
I think I got unmuted.
Okay, there you go. Okay, we'll back up to Martha's question.
Yeah, I highly recommend a menstrual cup, and there's so many different brands on the market. And gosh, I used one for years, and I'd say it's fantastic to transition away from pads and tampons. So a menstrual cup. There's also like washable pads that you can buy or make. I've never tried those, but the menstrual cup works great.
Thank you. Okay, thanks for that question. Now, we have another question from Mrs. Wagamam. She's wondering, what is washing powder?
I'm guessing she saw that on the slide with the cleaning solution, and it says washing soda powder. And that is an ingredient that I used to use in my cleaning products. I don't so much anymore, but you can buy it at the grocery store in the cleaning aisle, and it's just a powdered cleaner. But again, I don't use that anymore. That was kind of a old picture of a recipe, and now I use just baking soda.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I am looking for some more questions here. Anyone else have any questions for Julie? I'm also looking if anyone else has raised their hand. Don't see any there. I think, well, you've done such a thorough job, Julie, of covering all the.
But Julie, I have a question. Julie,
Okay.
this is Lorene. I have a question. I just wanted to know, on your soaps that you use, do you put any other than orange or other scents in there? Is there anything else that you use? You mentioned maybe rosemary.
Oh, in the vinegar that I use to clean my home?
Yeah, like lemon rinds, is that good? Or do you
Yeah,
put lemon
so
juice? Or...
orange rinds, you can add, like I said, rosemary, lavender, and you can just pick fresh and put it in your vinegar and in a jar and let it sit for a week or two. You could probably use pine needles, juniper berries, anything that kind of has really nice scent to it would probably be wonderful. So I'd say experiment. And I recommend looking online and in herbal books for information on how to infuse oils or infuse vinegars and to learn more about plants and some of their properties. And so there's so much information out there. I've put some resources in the back of my handout, and one of those includes an herbal book that I like that's just kind of a basic beginning herbal book that will help if anybody's interested in choosing that path.
Now's a good time for me to just say, if you haven't already and want to download the handout, if you look on the right-hand column there under handouts, you can click the little arrow there and find the handout you want. If you double click on that, it will automatically then go into am I right, Lorene? It will then be in your system.
Yes, you can download it.
Okay, great. So we have some more questions here. Lisa Schwinghammer is asking, can you please repeat what you use on your wood utensils?
It's a homemade wood butter, and it's kind of made the same way I make my salve. It's just oil and beeswax. And for that, I actually use fractionated coconut oil. You can use olive oil, but I wouldn't recommend using olive oil on wood cutting boards because it does go rancid. The fractionated coconut oil, and remember fractionated, doesn't go rancid. So that's what I use. And you can't buy in bulk, but you can buy a plastic jug of it or whatever, plastic bottle, and it'll last for a very long time.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. Yeah. Okay, we have another question coming in from Mrs. Wagamam. She's saying, where did you find wild roses with so many rose hips?
Just in the wild, actually right behind my house.
A follow-up question from Lisa, I think about the wood utensils. She's wondering if your recommendation is better than mineral oil.
Well, I wouldn't say it's better, it's just different. Mineral oil is petroleum, and it's, you know, finite resource, I guess. So mineral oil is kind of a standard that's used on wooden utensils. Fractionated coconut oil is not petroleum, so that's why I use it.
Very good, thank you. Okay, let's see. Lorena, are there any questions I'm missing? I don't see any more coming up on my screen, and I'm looking for any
I think
hands
there
up.
was, did you ask the one about the zero waste makeup products?
No, I missed that one. Do you want to read that since I didn't see that one?
Let me get the full question up here. Do you have any recommendation for zero waste makeup products you can buy?
I am seeing more and more companies that offer zero waste packaging. And when I say zero waste, they, you know, might package it in little glass containers or metal containers. I don't have any specific brands I can recommend, but there are more and more available that, you know, just do your Google search and look for that. I've kind of pared down my makeup to almost nothing, to be quite honest. And I've also experimented with making makeup, and you know, I've made a kind of a lip cheek color successfully. I've tried mascara not so successfully. So you can also experiment with making your own, but there are companies out there, and there's more and more all the time.
Thank you so much. Okay, I am looking through here and had a lot of good questions, but I'm not seeing any more. So I think I'll have one last call out for questions. If anyone is thinking of one, they want to get in, type it in or put their hand up, we'll make sure we don't miss that one. Lorene, do you see any questions that I missed?
I don't. You've covered them all, and
Okay.
very good.
Well, then I guess last call. I don't see any more. Thank you so much, Julie. This has just been such a interesting evening, and I'm sure people are looking forward to reading your handout and looking at all the great tips that you have included in the handout. Just again, I want to say that everyone tonight will be receiving a follow-up email, which we'll try to include that handout in there in case you didn't get a chance to double click and download that. Anyway, thanks, Julie, so much for joining us. It was just a real treat to have you, and it was just a wonderful talk. I wanted to say that we did record this talk, and if friends wanted to see it and didn't get a chance to, when you get the follow-up email, we'll be having a link to the recording that you're free to share with friends. And the recording will be available later on our website at gallatinvalleyearthday.org also. So I'd like to give a special thanks to our tech person tonight, who has been behind the scenes helping out, Lorene Reed. She's helped make everything run so smoothly tonight. And of course, I want to give one last big thanks to Julie. It was really enjoyable, and I'm sure all our audience members really came away with a lot of great ideas. So have a good evening, and we hope that you can join us for another Gallatin Valley Earth Day event soon. Have a good night. Thank you.
Yes, and thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for all that participated, and just have fun with it, and good luck with your own zero waste journey. Do it your way. All right, good night.
Good night.